Now, very first story, close to 500 civil society organizations have launched a campaign urging the president to recall Auditor-General Daniel Domelevu from accumulated leave. This, the group says, President Akufo-Addo could be affected in the run-up to the 2020 elections if he doesn't rescind his go-on-accumulated leave decision. The CSOs championing the anti-corruption fight in Ghana at a press briefing described the president's action as regrettable and unconstitutional. Joynews' Henry Kwesi-Bedu sat through the briefing and has more.
Mr. President, we are appealing to you. We have launched the campaign. We want you to bring back Daniel Domelevu.
Hashtag bring back Domelevu, beginning today.
Chants from members of civil society organizations calling on the president to recall Auditor-General Daniel Domelevu from accumulated leave. Mr. Domelevu received a letter on June 29, 2020 from the presidency directing him to take his accumulated leave from July 1, 2020. The Auditor-General in a reply asked the president to reconsider his directive, but in a swift response, the office of the president extended his leave period to 167 days from the previous 123 days. 435 civil society organizations members, including the Ghana Integrity Initiative, the CDD, Ghana, IMANI, Ghana Anti-Corruption Coalition, Institute for Democratic Governance, IDEG, among many others, have described the president's action as regrettable and unconstitutional. The CSOs also hinted they will seek redress at the Supreme Court. Dr. Kodopumpuni Asante spoke on behalf of the group.
As a result of the gravity of the constitutional issues raised by this question, we have to, at some point, apply to the Supreme Court for interpretation of the president's powers in respect of independent governance institutions. This is a very, very, very important issue. The arguments that are being put forward about the president's powers have serious implications for this democratic system that we want to operate in and the checks and balances and public accountability we are trying to promote. We have to get clarification on these matters from the Supreme Court.
The executive director of the Ghana Integrity Initiative, Linda Ofori-Kwafo, explained the president's action amount to interference in the affairs of independent institutions and sets a bad precedent.
We think the arguments that have been made are not so strong enough to allow such a head of audit service in Ghana, who is doing so well, to go on leave for 167 days. What kind of resting is he going to rest? Why is he sick? He's going to sleep for 167 days. That is too much. I think that is too much. And as Mr. Asante rightly said, I don't know of any private sector institution that will ask the CEO to go on leave for that long. And if you think that we are applying any law fairly, then let us do a small audit and see how many heads of state institutions in this country, independent state institutions, do not have accumulated leave, which we have said is non-existent. Actually, that debate is already flawed. Once you forfeit, it's forfeited. So we move on. If you wanted him to take his leave, the appointing authority that is today directing him to go on leave also saw to it whilst he was still in office. Why didn't you then? Please, I think this is more than we can take. It's a president who has shown commitment. We cannot take that from him. He made some giant decisions and actually campaigned on the back of anti-corruption and won the elections. We saw him creating the Office of Special Prosecutor and doing other things that were being applauded by the international community and even the donor community here in this country. I'm saying today they are all not very happy with us as a country. And we are going into an election again. So why would anybody want to advise the president to take some decisions that I think it's not going to be go well with most people? Already most people are not very happy.
Executive Director of the Institute for Democratic Governance, Dr. Emmanuel Akwete, was also unhappy with government's action, noting that the current happenings do not send the right signals to the governance community within and outside the country.
There is some confusion going on. Those of us with friends abroad and so on who are monitoring are saying, what has happened? What does this mean? What explains this? These are the two leaders we've seen standing in support of the fight against corruption. So let us look at that. And our appeal to the president, as in the statement, is that people are a bit confused and demoralized.
The CSOs have also called on all well-meaning Ghanaians to help them in a social media campaign to bring back the Auditor-General.
Fellow Ghanaians, we believe our president listens, and when he reassesses the case we have made, he will reconsider. In this regard, we are calling on all well-meaning Ghanaians to join us in our campaign to bring back Domlovo. Hashtag bring back Domlovo, beginning today. Second.
Well, the civil society organizations say it won't relent until hashtag bring back Domlevo is achieved. Henry Kwesi Bedu's report for Joynews.
Meanwhile, the Information Minister, Kojo Ponkroma, has asked civil society organizations to seek legal redress.
We would encourage them to move from conjecture and take the matters on their face as they are. If specifically the executive is out of step, I think that it is not about us, like we saw in the recent cases. It's not about me and Linda having a debate about it. If the executive is wrong, get the executive corrected through the appropriate legal matters. And like Dr. Kojo Asante mentions, he seeks to do that. I think that that is the appropriate way to express it, beyond conjecture, because conjecture really never solves a problem. If the executive is not wrong, and what the executive holds as a view, which is a view that has been tested in court, by the way, is the appropriate view, the courts will have an opportunity to speak to it. But I'm not sure we want to encourage this whole thing of conjecture and this whole thing of now banding everything, that once you say that the policeman has not followed the rules of evidence and that the particular evidence he seeks to present is poisoned because it's the fruit of a poison tree, then it means that you are bastardizing the entire law enforcement mechanism. I'm not sure that that is a position that we want to start taking.
Joining me via Zoom for more on this is an associate professor of political science at the University of Ghana, Professor Ransford Jampo. Thanks for your time, Prof. The CSOs want the president to rescind his decision on the Auditor-General to take his 167 accumulated leave, a decision they say will affect his fortunes in the December polls. What's your own assessment of the situation?
Hello, good evening. I think the civil society organizations have spoken, and they've spoken very well. It is not just one body making this call, but it's the coming together of various groups within the body politic that constitutes civil society and making such a call. I believe it's a call in the right direction, and I would also join them appealing to President Nana Akufo-Addo to rethink and reconsider his decision, because I've been looking at the legal issues. I've heard the Minister for Information asking the civil society organization leaders to look at the laws and all that. I believe some of them are lawyers. And in my view, I think the president was almost usurping the powers of the Audit Service and also the Public Service Commission in doing some of these things. And I don't think this advances his cause to fight against corruption. And so I believe this is a man who is reputed to be one of the best constitutional lawyers in Ghana. And so it is important that he reassesses the situation and look at the various legal provisions surrounding the independence of the Auditor-General, and for the purposes of taking a second look at his position. Because sometimes you may have a lot of hawks around the presidency who may offer certain advice. And the president is a very busy man, always doing so many things. And so sometimes he will just defer to the advice and to be implemented. But I think for this particular situation, given his interest in fighting corruption, I believe he must take a second look at the decision. And if possible, let's not set a certain precedent that would come back to haunt us all as a nation.
Now, the CSOs describe the president's action as amounting to interference in the affairs of independent institutions and sets a bad precedent. I mean, by joining them to call on the president to bring back Mr. Domelevo, do you share same view with them? Or how would you, from the political science point of view, describe the president's action?
Well, you see, the man is clothed with some independence to allow him do his work. And in my view, issues about he proceeding on leave and giving those directives are supposed to be emanating from maybe his direct superiors. The Audit Service Board is there, the Public Service and Public Service Commission is also there. And they are supposed to be doing some of these things. But you see, if you look at the posturing of the Auditor-General, the way and manner he's gone about his duties, the history of our Fourth Republic show that Auditor-Generals are always quiet. They keep quiet and they do their work silently behind the scenes. But this is an Auditor-General who has been a bit talkative and has also been exposing certain things in the public domain. And there is a perception that doing this is not helping. Some people in government do not like what he's doing. And so if such a decision that ideally could have been taken by the Audit Service Board or the Public Service Commission, the president descends into their realm to take that decision and to give those marching orders. It creates an impression that, well, maybe it is because he is getting on your nerves, and that's why some of these drastic directives are being given to him. And so if you do that, then it means you are just also being a bit intolerant of people who have been clothed with independence to do their work. And in that regard, if such a directive is given, then it creates, I'm tempted to agree with the civil society organizations that it may amount to some of the work of the independent body.
But Professor Jampo, this is a man that the board says it kept reminding to take his accumulated leaves, but he refused to take. Which other way would you have had the president go about it?
Well, if you look at their own rules, if you refuse to take your leave, you forfeit it. Until there is a negotiated agreement that allows you to stay. If you refuse to take a leave, you forfeit it. So why don't we say, well, you forfeited it, go ahead and do your work, particularly given the kinds of things that he's doing for Mother Ghana. And so I think sometimes we can evolve our own conventions and customs in addition to laws to help us promote accountability and to help us advance the cause of countervailing authority or mechanisms that are expected to check the exercise of powers and to fight against corruption. We can be legalistic about it, but sometimes if you follow the law and also you do not look at conventions or perceptions or certain appearances of something untoward being done, or the perception that, well, you have an agenda just to silence a man. If you don't take all those perceptions into consideration, then it may not make people see you as a serious person or as a serious government in trying to fight corruption. And so I think I want to agree with the civil society leaders that the president, I don't think it's too late at all. The president may have to reconsider, rethink the decision to let him go home for over 160 days. I think it's too much.
I'm grateful for your time. Professor Ransford Jampo is an associate professor of political science at the University of Ghana. Remember the hashtag Bring Back Domelevo is trending on Twitter. Let's get on Twitter and get some of the messages on Twitter, and some of the messages read: don't interfere with the mandate of the Auditor-General, stop corruption by supporting strong institutions, and don't interfere with the work of the anti-corruption campaign institutions. Precious Ankoma says the campaign has begun. We'll do our bit in the fight against corruption. And this one also says, what? All hands on deck. We need more Domelevos to fight corruption. Pen Plus Bytes says, we are supporting the Auditor-General because we haven't witnessed his kind in the long time. Lindo Furi Kwafo at Ghana Integrity Initiative, Bring Back Domelevo. And it's she's one of the CSOs that are calling on the president to rescind his decision. It's on Twitter. It's not actually trending, but it's gaining some momentum out there. Now, Ghana.